It's such a gloomy morning today, but that didn't stop us from getting coffee. Today we are early because we are going on an excursion.
Krakow was mostly spared during the German bombings of World War II, and that's because the war started on September 1st, 1939, and Krakow was invaded in that very first week. That is German Blitzkrieg. The early German occupancy of Poland gave way to today's excursion. We made it to Auschwitz I. It is free entry, but it's recommended to book a tour guide. They'll do your transport and they'll also tell you everything about the concentration camps. It took about an hour to get here and I'm anxious to get started.
Here's that famous sign at the entrance that reads, "Work will set you free," but it was just an empty promise.
This complex is huge. There are two parts to it, Auschwitz and Birkenau. We will go to Birkenau later. The tour at Auschwitz I will take you around some of the blocks where people used to sleep. As you enter the first one, the first thing you see is this urn filled with human ashes. It serves as a memorial to those that perished here, and it reminds you of the purpose of this tour.
This is a model that shows how the gas chambers worked. Do you see all those people on the left? After that, they would take their bodies to the crematoria on the right. They operated continuously from August 15, 1940 until January 1945. Cyclone B was a material used to create the gas for the chambers. All of these cans are filled with cyclone B. Throughout your tour, you will see plenty of evidence of the atrocities committed by the SS, Hitler's personal bodyguard unit, which later became one of the most feared organizations in all of Nazi Germany.
Upon arrival, everyone was to get rid of their belongings. This included eyeglasses and prosthetics. If someone was deemed unable to work, they were immediately sent to the gas chambers. This included sick people, disabled, pregnant women, babies, and kids. It all just based on a visual inspection. The rest were forced to complete grueling, meaningless tasks day by day.
All of these shoes belonged to people sent to the gas chambers upon arrival. There were rooms filled to the brim with them. Do you see the size of these shoes? People who came here were given false hopes, and to keep up with that appearance, they were told to write their names and addresses in their bags so they could claim them later. Everyone thought they were only coming here temporarily to work.
As we mentioned, prisoners would sleep in these blocks. This hallway has images of some of the men and women murdered at the camp. Each image shows a date of birth and a date of death, as well as where they were from. Remember that these people were brought here from all parts of Europe.
This is what a typical room would look like during the first years of the camp. Keep in mind that everyone had the same schedule for going to the bathroom and eating. Those toilets were not enough.
This is what a room would have looked like when Auschwitz was already an extermination camp.
This wall served as an execution site for those who did something against the norms of the SS. It wasn't something hard to do. However, every so often some people were brought here randomly. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the place. Nazi Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, which marked the beginning of World War II. Auschwitz was built in occupied Poland very close to Krakow in 1940. At first, it was only used for war prisoners. However, Nazi Germany kept gradually introducing restrictions for Jews. It was so gradual that no one saw this coming. Eventually, Jews from all over occupied Europe were limited to living in ghettos and later sent to concentration camps after Germany came up with the final solution to the Jewish question. At first, it was mostly about making Jews as uncomfortable as possible so that they would just leave on their own. But now, it was all about extermination, exterminating anyone who identified as a Jew. Massive exterminations started in 1942, almost 3 years after the war had started. Soon enough, people living in ghettos were sent to the concentration camps around Europe, but they were always told that everything was going to be temporary. After finishing at Auschwitz I, we were taken to Birkenau. It is about 15 minutes away, but it's still part of this complex. However, the weather was not in our favor.
It's bitter cold, it's freezing, it's horrible, it's dreadful. It's a nightmare.
It feels like we're back in Chicago.
It truly was very cold that day, but I believe that bone-chilling weather brought us a more authentic experience and made us reflect on what the people here would have gone through. You see, they were only allowed to use a uniform made out of really thin material regardless of the weather.
Conditions were so horrible that some even opted to throw themselves at the electrified fences surrounding the camp. However, a punishment awaited for those who remained in the camp whenever someone was missing during roll call. Birkenau is the main entry point. Prisoners were taken here in these cattle cars. As soon as they arrived, their possessions were confiscated and they were told to line up. The selection process would then begin. If deemed able to work, they were put in one line. But if not, they were put in another line that brought them straight to the gas chambers. If you came here with your family, this would have been the last time you would have seen them. The crematorium worked day and night. Sometimes it couldn't even keep up, so bodies were often burned out in the open or buried in mass graves. Everyone deported to Auschwitz was told that they were being temporarily moved to the east and to bring necessary luggage for the journey. People were allowed to bring only one bag with them. Can you imagine putting your entire life in one bag? It was all part of a scheme carried out by the SS. People needed to believe that everything was going to be all right, even to the very last moment. For instance, those sent to the gas chambers were told that they were being sent to the camp. But first they needed to bathe and disinfect.
These ruins that you see here are the crematoria at Birkenau. Almost at the end of the war, when Soviet soldiers were approaching, SS officials opted to destroy them in an attempt to hide any evidence of the horrors committed here. But when Soviet troops liberated the camp and found piles and piles of belongings, as well as many of the victims that remain here after the SS abandoned the camp, it was evident that many crimes against humanity were committed here. It is estimated that 1.1 million people died here. Most of them were Jewish. However, there were many other groups that lost their lives here, like Polish people, war prisoners, the sick and disabled, kids, homosexuals, educated people, among many others. Keep in mind that this would have looked very different back then. You would only be able to see mud and rocks. We had the chance to go into one of the blocks. It was heartbreaking to learn that these cubicles would hold up to 3 to 4 people. We hope this video helped you understand the history of this concentration camp. This visit definitely changed your perspective of the world, but it is important to learn about the horrors that went on here. Hopefully we are able to share its message with you. It was a sad visit, but a necessary one, to reflect on the history of humanity and learn from it so it never happens again. It helps us appreciate how fortunate we are to live in a world where we are free. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.